Hi, this is Christy Marx, creator of Gem and the Holograms, and you're listening to a truly outrageous podcast with Mike, Amy, and Nicole. It's showtime, Synergy.
Me and my friends are Gem Girls. Gem is my name. Exciting adventure, fashion, and fame. Once you're a Gem girl, you're never the same. Come on and be a Gem girl. Gem is my name. Me and my friends are Gem Girls. Gem is my name. Truly outrageous, that's a Gem girl. Glamour, fashion, and fame. Exciting adventure, fashion, and fame. Once you're a Gem girl, you're never the same. Come on and be a Gem girl. Gem is my name.
Hello and welcome to Showtime Synergy. I am one of your hosts, TFG and Mike. Joining me is Lady Rec. Hello.
Hello.
And Nicole Hailstorm. Hello.
Aloha.
In the first ever Showtime Synergy interview, we welcome the creator and head writer of Gem and the Holograms back to the Geekcast Radio Network, Christy Marx. Yay! I so cannot do Kermit the Frog. Hello, Christy. How are you?
Hello there, everybody.
Oh, boy. So, yeah, Showtime Synergy. It's our new Gem review podcast. I've been planning this podcast since the DVD set came out in 2011.
You just had to find the chicks.
This is a thing.
Let's be
This
honest.
is like
You've been
ongoing.
planning. Yeah, you've been planning this interview since you were 10. Let's be.
No, that would be Samantha Newark, which will hopefully happen in the next few months.
Oh, Samantha's terrific. I'm sure she'd be happy to do something for you.
And I was just going to say that you just had to find some chicks to come and review it with you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Had to get some insane ones like us.
As people will find out as they listen to all
I'm
25
perfectly
episodes of the
normal.
podcast.
That's a lie.
You are such a liar, Roxy. And the reason why I call her Roxy, for the listeners viewing, or listeners'
Listening.
knowledge, thank you, knowledge, and Christy's knowledge is, Nicole actually has a Roxy wig.
Yeah, I love Roxy. It's awesome.
That's
I dressed up as
awesome.
Roxy 3 years ago for Halloween. Love it.
Well, I have a cat named Jetta, and she is
Oh,
named
nice.
Jetta because she is a sort of long-haired, fluffy, but always scruffy-looking black cat with just a little bit of white on her chest.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Okay, so, before we get started, can you give us the scoop on what is going on in the world of Christy Marx? Any upcoming projects that you're allowed to talk about? Because I know there are things that are probably coming up that you can't talk about.
That's true. I'm still a full-time principal game designer at Zynga, and I specialize more specifically in what's called narrative design, meaning finding ways to mesh story with gameplay, storytelling with gameplay, and was recently promoted into a department where I'm focusing on multiple games rather than working on one game team at a time as I've been doing for the previous 4 years. I'm now taking that accumulated knowledge and using it on more than one team. So that's been a very interesting change, and I just marked 4 years at Zynga, so that's pretty cool. And in my spare time, I've been writing for DC Comics. I finished up my run on Birds of Prey with issue number 34, and then also the Future's End issue, which would have been the equivalent of number 35. And in fact, I just received my contributor's copy of the compilation trade paperback of all the rest of my issues from that run.
Oh, cool.
And then in the meantime, I've been doing some shorter things for DC. Not sure.
Yeah, we'll be bringing those up
a
a little bit later.
Okay, we can get into those a bit later. I think one of them has been announced, and I might be able to talk about.
Because my jaw nearly dropped when I saw the solicitation for it.
Okay, cool.
It's a boxing glove, right? Okay, boxing glove arrow, maybe that'll be better.
Oh, okay, boxing glove arrow. Okay.
Oh boy! All right, so you mentioned Zynga. Last time I talked to you in 2011, I believe you had either just wrapped or were wrapping on Mafia Wars 2. What are you working on with them now?
Well, from that project, I went on to a what's called a hidden objects game. It was called Hidden Chronicles. It was a very story-driven hidden objects kind of a game, which was something I'd never worked on one of those before, and that was very, very interesting. And then I went on to Castleville Legends, which was one of the very first mobile games that Zynga has made, because Zynga is now making a huge turn to producing mobile games along with the rest of the world. And everyone, I think just about every game company in existence, with a few holdouts in the console world, are now really focused on mobile gaming because it's just becoming gigantic. It's an enormous market now between the phones and the tablets and everything else. So Castleville Legends was a lot of fun. I spent about a year and a half on that. And then, as I said, I got promoted to principal game designer, and now I'm in a special department where I'm using my expertise across a number of games rather than on any one game in particular.
Nice.
Interesting. So how did it come about that you started working for DC Comics and writing Birds of Prey?
Well, it goes back to let's see. I'm trying to remember what year it was, but quite a while back anyway. I did the development and writing, and I was the executive story editor on a show called Hypernauts. It was a live action show that had some just amazing CG elements because it was done by Ron Thornton, who did all of the initial CG for Babylon 5. And so Ron and I had become friends and remained friends. So he sold this concept to ABC. And I was brought in to do all the development and story editing and writing and so forth. And the exec on that was a guy named Dan DiDio. Well, Dan DiDio left ABC and became vice president of DC Comics, which is like his ultimate dream job. This guy was just absolutely a total comic book geek. And so for him to get that job was just perfect. So anyway, I had not heard from him in a very, very, very long time. And then one day at Zynga, I get a call, and it's Dan, and he says, we would really love to have you reboot a comic book from the 1980s called Amethyst. So this was
I was going
a
to ask
property.
you about that.
Yeah, it was a property
Yeah.
they'd had, back it ran in the 1980s. I forget exactly how many issues, And I said, sure, I would love to do that. I remember reading the book back at the time. So I ended up doing a reboot on that. That ran for, how many issues did that run for? I've already, yeah, I think it was like 8. And then they asked me to take on Birds of Prey. So I picked up Birds of Prey with number 18 and was writing that through to, like I said, number 34. And then the last one, the Future's End one. And I know they would love to have me be doing some more monthly stuff for them. And so we will see what happens.
Woohoo! That'd be awesome.
Okay, well, I got a question since you brought up Amethyst. I was a fan of it. I was kind of sad to see it canceled after 8. I'm like, really? This is it? Was there any storylines or characters that you didn't get to show in the world that you wanted to put in?
Oh, yeah, tons of them. I mean, I sat down and did a very detailed Bible for the series and for what I wanted to do. And, there's all the other major houses like House Ruby and House Emerald and, all of these. I just had all kinds of stuff planned that I really wanted to do. So, yeah, I share your disappointment. I really wish I could have.
Any
really
chance
wish
of
I
coming
could have
back?
carried that. Not that I know of, no.
Oh, man, I really loved that because it was such a great fantasy. And it was really cool with all the gem world. I just loved it. It was great. It was sad that it was only 8 issues, but it was great 8 issues.
And they've collected that into a trade paperback as well.
Yeah, I've got that, and I've got it on my Kindle as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they might have done better had they actually just called the book Amethyst and not
Not Sword and Sorcery.
not made it an anthology and just tried to just sell Amethyst itself, I think they might have reached their audience a little bit better.
Oh, I could see just where you were going with all the different houses and all the different conflicts of them. Oh my god! Oh my gosh! It could have been almost like a Green Lantern kind of thing with all the different colors and stuff.
Oh, yeah,
Bummer!
absolutely. Yeah, there's a
Bummer.
lot there. 'Cause it was kind of funny when Dan called and we were talking about it. And, Game of Thrones had just hit and become, really this massive hit. It had just started running on HBO. And so he was saying, so we wanted to have this, this kind of, Game of Thrones feel. And I'm like, wait, you mean incest and and all kinds of violence and murder and death? And he's like, no, not that. And I said, oh, you mean the dynastic stuff, all the intrigue. Yeah, that.
Oh, it was so good. Well, I
You have
hope
to
it
be careful
comes back.
what you use for an example,
Well, I hope it comes back. I really do. I'd like to
that
see
would
your
be
notes on the
nice.
rest of it too.
All right, so I mentioned it earlier with the boxing glove arrow joke. I found out that you are, and I didn't know about this. Like I haven't. I am a person that is slowly being disillusioned to DC Comics for what they are doing and what they just. Certain aspects of what the company is doing, I'm just not happy with as far as the writing goes, as far as where the storylines are going. So I hadn't really kept up with this whole Convergence 2-month event because they have to move from New York to LA. But recently I did an episode of The Pullbag where we talked about it, and as I'm going down, I think it's like either week 1 or week 2.
It's week 2.
Week 2.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Week 2, you're going to be writing a 2-part Green Arrow story.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
there
I have written
any-
it. It is done. It is being penciled and inked.
Nice.
Is there anything that you can tell us? Anything?
Boy, I don't know how much I can really give away, to be honest with you. The Convergence is, of course, this big event, and there are what they're calling the spine books. In other words, there's going to be the line of books that tells the really central part of the story, and then there's all these sort of side branches that are 2-issue stories, like the one that I'm doing with all different people, all different characters. And the idea behind Convergence is that they're drawing from all the different multiverse aspects of the DC universe. So, you have the Kingdom Come version of Metropolis, and then you also have the original 1994 Green Arrow version of Metropolis, and you've got all these different timelines and universes that have occurred, and it's all being drawn into this huge Convergence event. So I think I can probably safely say that in the first book, one of the key things that happens is that Oliver Queen has found himself in Metropolis and encounters the son that he didn't know he had. So Connor is going to also be in this book. And a couple of other characters of great interest that I probably can't give away just yet.
Oh, man. Well, you got me
Maybe
sold.
your
You got me sold.
maybe your other character that you've written for Miss Canary over there. Seeing as how they used to date at one point or another.
That would be a fair guess.
Yeah. Amy, did you
But the
have
interesting thing would be which
Yeah.
version.
Oh yeah! Oh no!
Oh no.
That's the one thing that's going to give all DC Comics fans a huge headache with this whole Convergence thing is that question: which version of this character is it going to be?
Oh man, I had so much fun with that.
I can tell.
Brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I was going to ask is, what was it like working for the big three in the comics industry? I mean, some people work really hard their whole lives to get in with DC and just jumped right in and started going for it, man. It was awesome. But what was it like?
Well, I had previously worked at Marvel, on a number of books, and of course I had Marvel through their Epic line back in the 80s had published my creator-owned series, The Sisterhood of Steel. So, I had worked at least with that company, and then smaller independent companies. But DC, of course, is, it's a massive corporate juggernaut, and you just have to take that into account. they're great people to work with. I mean, I love all the people that I've worked with, and the editors, and Dan is a hoot. He's so much fun, and Bob Harris is terrific. I mean, they've all been very, very good to me and treated me very well. And it's just that you just have to understand that there are considerations that come out of being a big publishing company like that.
Yeah.
There's going to be a certain amount of action they're going to want to have, and then they might say, oh God, we want to have more ties. Like with Amethyst, the thing that came up very much towards the end was, oh, we want to have a bit more tie to the real world, the earth that she came from, so let's bring in Eclipso. And then we came up, Rachel Gluckstern, my editor, and I played with it and came up with this really cool connection to make him someone who originally came from the world of Amethyst. And so, his black diamond then relates to the House of Diamond and the House of Onyx in that world. And so, we had fun with stuff like that, but I had not planned to put Eclipso into that series at all. I mean, he didn't figure into my plans anywhere. And it was like all of a sudden, oh, we suddenly want to have Eclipso in. And so you have to like rejigger and rethink and go back and rework stuff in order to satisfy that requirement. So, things like that are going to happen. That's just a necessity.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, so we're here on Showtime Synergy to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Jim, but we have to talk about what's coming up later this year for Jim, which is the new movie. Yay!
Hey, don't yet.
No, I'm not being negative. I'm just saying yay. Originally, a few years ago when this happened, or a couple of years ago, I don't remember when it was. It might have been the 2011 interview we did with you. By the way, Michael Wilson says hello. Hopefully he listens to this.
Oh, he will. He will. We'll make him.
I believe we asked you about it then, but just remind me more than anybody else what your conversation with John Chu was about the movie, and what kind of info did you give to him about, the direction that you thought it might go?
Yeah, well, I mean, John already had a script, so he already knew the story that he wanted to tell. But he basically was asking me for input about things that might be useful to him about the characters and thinking about the characters and so forth. And one of the things I said to him that I thought that I could have done a better job of on the original series was treating Shayna and Aja more like real sisters. I mean, in the animation series, I never really thought about this for some reason, but Jericho would only ever refer to Kimber as her sister, but really Aja and Shayna are just as much her sisters, and I felt that there could have been a lot more connection, a lot tighter connection there for that. And I just reminded him that it's really just very much about the relationships of these characters and their friendships and what they mean to one another and things like that. And he was just terrific. He was really, really a wonderful person to talk to. And Hasbro actually flew me down to L.A. one weekend, and so that on a Saturday I could sit down and have lunch with John, and he brought his computer and he ran me through this whole visual presentation with the kind of thing he had used to pitch the movie to Hasbro, and just ran me through what he had in mind and what his goals and desires were for it, and he was very enthusiastic. This is very much a passion project for him. It's something he worked for years and years to try to get Hasbro to finally do something with this. So it's not like Hasbro just said, let's make a low-budget movie and then we'll just grab this guy. It was really much more, John Chu being deeply enthusiastic and going out of his way to make it happen. So he cared very much about the project. And for that reason, and because I really liked him tremendously, when he asked me to do a cameo, I said that I would.
Well,
cool.
There's one of your questions
Yeah,
already
my
answered,
question.
Nicole.
I'm
Okay,
so happy to hear that.
So since you already said that you are making a cameo, before we started this interview, I made a little prediction, but I don't know if it'll come true or not. And we had discussed this, and I have to bring this up now that she already answered the question.
I know. I'm smiling so hard right now.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. since, I don't know, 2002, 2003, more so since Iron Man came out in 2008. We live in a generation of where filmmakers and Hollywood in general uses after credit scenes. And everything I've heard about the new Gem movie coming out, I believe it's, without looking it up, I think it's October 23rd this year.
That's about right, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything I've heard about it and seen about what it's going to be about has nothing to do with synergy whatsoever. So I said to Amy and Nicole, I said, if she does have a cameo, wouldn't it be the most awesome thing if there was just this giant pink outline and it's just her voice as synergy?
Well, you understand that I'm under non-disclosure, so
I know.
I can't really give much away at this point. The scene that I did, God knows whether it will actually make it into the movie, and
It
you know,
better.
it's
hope it does.
It could be terribly embarrassing if it does, because you know I'm not an actress, and I kept saying over and over and over again to John, hey, you know, I'm not an actress. I do not know how to act, but he had lines he wanted me to deliver.
Oh.
And then I looked at the lines and got, me being me, God, this is so terrible. But I said, you know, this is, can I rewrite these? And he said, oh yeah, sure, fine, whatever. So I rewrote them to something
Does
that
that
I
mean you get a
felt,
writing credit for it then?
oh God, no. We're just talking a few lines. That's it.
Yeah.
So I they flew me down to LA, put me up in a really, really cool old historic hotel in downtown LA area. There's this very cool, interesting little studio that's down there in the downtown LA area. It's very, very self-contained kind of a little studio. It's an interesting place. And they were shooting a big nighttime concert scene, and so my cameo was taking place during that event. So when I got into the makeup trailer, all four girls were there. All four actresses were there getting made up for this big concert scene and so forth. So they all came over and said hello and introduced themselves. They were very sweet. And so they did the whole makeup thing on me, and everybody treated me extremely well. And I mean, very much I felt like I was treated like royalty on the set. It was very, very nice. And then I did a scene with Ryan Guzman, who they've hired to play Rio. And so it was the two of us doing this little scene with they had brought in all kinds of extras that were basically Gem fans. So they're all behind us miming, you know, to what should be the concert music and so forth. So it was entertaining. It was definitely entertaining.
We'll be looking for you, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now we know where to look. It's like, oh, that scene. You
Yeah,
know?
the night
Awesome.
concert scene.
I think it's probably towards the end of the movie. I'm not sure, but that's my best guess. I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen the script. I haven't read the script. I have not seen any of the movie, so I know absolutely nothing in that respect.
Do you plan
Awesome.
on going to like opening night to it?
If they have one and they want to pay my way, I probably would go.
Oh,
Awesome.
they should. They should.
What an experience that will be, though. Just, oh, wow.
I got a long way to beat Stan Lee, though.
Oh.
He's got me beat. I'm sorry. I never matched the number of cameos that the great Stan Lee has done.
I don't think anybody can now.
No, I think he's got that record.
Yeah. I don't think anybody will ever be able to top that record.
My favorite one still is when he drinks the thing in the Hulk movie.
Oh god.
He's such a good sport.
Oh, he is. Stan's great.
Oh,
Well,
goodness.
I know you haven't seen the script or anything about the movie, but I got a question about it, just about your feeling about it. One of the rumors around they're saying that they changed Eric into Erica. How do you feel about that little change?
I'm kind of baffled by it. If it's true, and if that's actually what they've done, my feeling is kind of like, why? You know, I mean, there's nothing particularly wrong with it, I guess. I just don't understand why why go in that direction. I mean, I didn't know about it. I've only heard the rumors like everybody else, so I didn't get a chance to ask John Chu about it.
I was baffled by it too. That's why I thought I'd ask you.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
I was gonna say that's a perfect reaction. Is it's very baffling. It's like, oh, okay.
I mean, there's been an awful lot of gender bending and rebooting stuff happening lately. I'm a fan of the Elementary show on TV, which is a modern take on a Sherlock Holmes, and instead of John Watson, you've got Joan Watson, played by Lucy Liu, and you kind of like have to wrap your head around it and go, okay.
Well, at first, but then it seems like it just seems so right, because then the chemistry between the two main actors is just so well that it.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of the show too. I've been watching it, and I've been like, wow, I'm constantly amazed at how well it's worked out for that show. So
there's stuff like that happens, but I mean, I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, so I can't really address why. I mean, this is pure speculation, but maybe it was just as simple as he had this amazing actress and really wanted to use her, and didn't have, and that was like the only real role for her. And so it was like, okay, so why not?
Let's try it. Yeah, see how it works.
I mean, that's just a guess, but who knows? It could have been something as simple as that.
Yeah. In your first interview that you guys did with back in 2010, you said that if you had any control over what they did with Gem of the Future, that you'd hope that it would be in a new animated show. I know it's not your first choice, but with the movie releasing later this year, what do you hope will come out of its existence?
I just like the idea that a whole new generation can be exposed to Gem, the concept of Gem, and that might breathe more life into the overall property. I'm sure you guys were planning to get around to mentioning this at some point, but IDW is also bringing out a new comic book.
Oh yeah.
So there's maybe opportunity to see other things happen with Gem as a result. It just really depends. It's hard to predict at this point. I know that John would very much like to see these be a series of movies, of Gem movies, not just a one-off.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I hope that happens then.
Yeah, that's what he had in mind at any rate. Yeah.
Awesome. That'd be cool. It's interesting because the build up between now and the time that the movie comes out, we're going to have a comic. I'm sure that there are going to be more conventions and whatnot. It's just going to be really interesting to kind of sit back and see how that build up is going to be going over the next year, and to see how that pays off. And it's quite exciting. It's quite exciting to see.
Yeah, it should be very interesting. I did GemCon this last year in Toronto, and the upcoming GemCon is at the end of August in Philadelphia for this year. And it looks like I'll probably be at that one.
Woohoo!
Cool. That'd be so
All right.
much fun. So much fun.
So, Gem is 30 years old this year. Now, I remember when we were doing pre-production on Showtime Synergy in 2014, Amy, of all people, pointed this out to me about an animation error or an animation flub, and I actually emailed you about this, and I said something along the lines of, "Hello, Christy, Gem is almost, it's going to have its 30th anniversary." In the first line of your email response back to me was, "Gack, 30 years."
Oh my God! Yeah, it's a little hard to believe it's been that long.
So, how do you feel about the fact that something you created for the cartoon series is now, it's been 30 years since the first, well, in October it'll be 30 years since the first episode aired?
It's pretty amazing. I certainly never imagined it back when we were first doing this series, and I think it's indicative of the fact that there's this natural cycle of nostalgia where people grow up with something, and then they get to a certain age and they look back nostalgically on the 80s, and they remember things that meant something to them in the 80s, and then suddenly that all comes welling up and becomes another pop cultural thing that comes up again. And so I think that's what we're seeing this generation that grew up with Jem and now are introducing Jem to their kids. It's very interesting to me, the number of email I've gotten from people who have told me, oh, my kid just loves Jem. I've showed Jem to my kids and they're absolutely crazy about it. And then, of course, when it ran on the Hub and then it became available on Netflix, it began reaching a new generation that began responding to it. I mean, never mind that the fashion is old, the music is old, the technology in the shows that is old, but it doesn't matter because the underlying richness of the characters and of the stories just comes through anyway, and that's what endures. It communicates across to a new generation of kids, which is just terrific.
Well, see, we've been going back and we've been reviewing all the episodes. I don't know if Mike told you that or not, and I think it's all three of us agree that it still holds up. It's still very well written and produced, and it's still a great show. There's some shows you go back and you're like,
It's one of the most refreshing 80s cartoons we've ever had. It doesn't matter that the vans and the cars and the mansions are like 80s style. It doesn't even matter anything about that. The sad thing is, and I hope someone at Hasbro listens to this, what I'm about to say right now, get off your butts, talk to Netflix, and get them to sign the GD contract, because according to Netflix, as of February 2nd, 2015, Jem will be leaving Netflix US.
Oh
no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody at Hasbro, do something. All right.
I was just gonna point out the historical factor that I mean it might be the 80s, but at the same time, it's always, for me, going back and watching it, it's kind of a nostalgic rush because you're like, oh, I remember when we were wearing that.
Yep.
Yes.
So if you're a child of the 80s, you can really appreciate it. And if you're not, that's okay, because like the interactions between the characters are still very, very rich. And so I think any child of any age will be able to relate to the show just because of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and not just kids too. I mean, I was absolutely amazed when the show began to rerun on the Hub. I received this very sincere, lovely, handwritten letter from a 16-year-old girl.
Oh, wow.
She'd actually handwritten me a letter, which was just amazing. And nobody ever does that anymore. And she, she had discovered the show for the first time ever, and it just had resonated with her, and to the point where she felt compelled to write to me and let me know.
Wow.
That is so awesome. Oh my gosh.
So something's there, something works.
There was an episode, I forget which one it is off the top of my head. I know it was season 1, where Jem holds up the Music Biz Top 10 with bands like Iron Maiden, Twisted Brother, the Ramones. How did you come up with all these band names? Like plays on the band names.
Well, I don't know which episode are we talking about?
It was one where their album hit number 1. I don't remember, but there was an image where someone handed her. She was showing off. I'll have to show you the picture. But it's like Bruce Fallstein, the moss-covered Stones. Tom Potty, and I can't see the rest of it, but it says Tom Potty and the Something Breakers.
That might have been someone else's episode, but okay. When I was doing the Jem Jam, of course, I had, instead of Tina Turner, I had Lena Lerner. I mean, you just do things that are close, that you can get away with. And everybody goes, oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about. Oh, that's really supposed to be Michael Jackson. Oh, that's really supposed to be, so-and-so. And that's how you get away with it.
Yep.
Awesome. So you've mentioned in past interview, we listened to all of those, of course, before we had this. You mentioned that you had an idea how to bring Gem back if you had a chance to bring the an animated version back. And I wanted to follow up on that. Have you had a chance to pitch it?
No, not really. I don't know whether I think Hasbro is probably sitting back and waiting to see how all of this goes and what kind of response it gets, and because animation series are expensive, and kids programming doesn't really pay very well. There's not a lot of money in it, so for them to do something as extreme as if they were going to fund an animation show, or someone would either have to come to them wanting to do an animation show for some reason and provide funding, because it's highly unlikely that Hasbro, they're not in the business of making animated shows. They're in the business of making toys. And it's true they are moving more into the movie making and so forth, but without a line of doll to support it, I'm not sure that they would see the value of doing an animation series. So it's a bit difficult to know whether they'd be willing to go for that or not.
Well, I hope that if the movie really makes a big impact and the industry starts, looking at that as like, hey, there's a space for this, that happens, that you get a chance to pitch it, because I'm completely interested.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I have already talked to the guys at IDW, and I know they're interested in maybe the potential of working with me on something. I'm not working on the current comic. That's two entirely separate. It has nothing to do with me, and I didn't know anything about it until it was announced. So yeah. I'm not involved with that.
Well, I with other animation shows being in existence right now, are you up to date on some of the stuff that comes out now that's been really successful?
A little bit, I guess. I haven't followed it quite as much lately, mainly just because I've been working pretty much exclusively and full time in game design. Yeah. So I haven't really looked at it all that closely.
I mean, the reason why I was asking that is just because I thought, if you've seen anything and, if it's influenced you, or if you've updated any of your ideas on your initial, because like I said, it sounded like you had like the whole thing plotted out, which was awesome.
I asked you about it.
I know.
Yeah. So I was just wondering if, it'd be really cool, because I'm like, I would really like to see another generation of Gem animation. It'd be so cool.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think that we're probably way, way overdue to resolve the Gem Jericho Rio triangle, and I think
Yes.
that, it would be kind of
Yes.
fun to do something with that. But we shall see. Time will tell.
Awesome.
Okay, going back to that. Okay. This is one thing that's totally confused me the whole. I'm like, what the? Okay. Did you ever come to a conclusion where Rio found out and they just didn't put it into the show?
Actually, when I first started working, the very, very first development, that I believe that was my intention, but everybody at Sunbow said, "Oh no, this is too much fun. Let's leave it the way it is." So we did.
Curse you, Tom and Joe.
So you yourself never came up with the conclusion that he ever found out?
Not for the 60, not in the 65 half hours, no.
Oh, dang it. That's all I want. I just want this guy to know. I just want Rio to find out.
Nicole isn't the biggest fan of Rio at all.
Oh, I like Rio.
I think Rio knows about the game. He just enjoys the game. Okay. And then somehow Jerica knows that he knows, and she's just playing along more of the game, and yeah. That's my conclusion.
Every episode we've reviewed, Anytime Rio's in an episode, Nicole takes 2 points off.
No. I gave him credit for the last one. Okay, we reviewed.
Yeah.
He actually did something really smart, and I'm like, wow, why can't you always be like this?
Now. Rio, poor Rio. I was cruel to Rio. So.
Oh my god.
So you did
All right.
on purpose, they're saying. I like even more now.
Wow. Amy, what is your next question?
Well, one of the biggest cool things about Gem is the fact that there's a lot of music in it, and I was doing a little bit of research just because we love the music. I mean, we spend at least every episode that we've reviewed just talking about which one we liked and why, and but there are a lot of lyrics that are written for the show, and I was looking on the wiki page. And I know that some of them were written by other people. Barry Harmon was mentioned. I think it was like the opening song that he wrote, and then another one wrote the second half. But I was wondering who did all of the lyrics for most of the show.
Oh, boy.
Or was it just a
think-
group effort?
No. There were lyricists. You had lyricists that were writing lyrics, and then you had the composer that was doing the music. And I know that Anne Bryant and Barry Harmon worked on that, but my memory is so bad that I don't quite remember who was doing the lyrics and who was doing the music. But they did all of that. That was all done in New York.
Oh, okay.
What the writers would do, like what I would do, and what the writers would do is in the script is we would say this is what the song is about, and we might suggest kind of some ideas for visuals or ideas for what might be said in the song, but we didn't write lyrics.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going to say, did you write the lyrics? Because they're awesome.
Yeah, no. That was not within my purview.
Yeah, I counted up for our podcast here. Season 1, I don't know about Season 2 as of this interview, but Season 1 has 72 songs in it.
Yeah, it got to be very expensive, and they reached a point where we had to start reusing songs, and so it actually did hit that point where it was, okay, now in each episode we need to reuse at least one hologram song or one Misfit song.
And the reuses, and you fine listeners will hear us say this as we go along in the podcast here, but the reuses, how it blends into each new episode, it's flawless. I mean, it works well. I didn't think reusing People Who Care in some other episode other than World Hunger Shindig would actually work. But it does.
But amazingly it does, yeah. No,
Yeah.
It's tricky, but I mean, that's part of the job of a writer is to figure out how to incorporate that stuff.
I also thought the fact that each music video that they went with the music, even if they repurposed the same tune in the background, it was a completely new music video, and that I always point out as being a good point that helps make it work, is because there's something new that's with it. So
well, you'd have to, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise it wouldn't make any sense.
yeah, but it's just cool because like even when they've replayed the same song, sometimes they'll do a completely new video that's with it as well, and it's the same song, but it's because it's being used in a different situation. You've got a completely different video that's with it as well. So awesome.
Yeah,
Was there
absolutely.
ever a season 4 planned? Or was it just the 3?
Well, remember, this was syndicated animation. So, I mean, talking about these things in seasons doesn't really relate to the way people tend to think of seasons on television. So really,
Gotcha.
It was more like batches of 13 and 13 and 13 and, until you have 65 half hours. 65 half hours at the time was a full run of syndication.
Gotcha.
And and they did it that way because then they would do what they called stripping, which is where they would run one episode 5 times a week, like Monday to Friday. Every afternoon they'd run an episode, and so that would fill up a certain number of weeks by doing the 65 half hours that way. So it was really just not so much a season as just, oh, we've now done 65 half hours. And really it was tied more to toy development seasons, if anything, because there was the first batch was based on the dolls that we had, and then the next, quote, season, unquote, was where we introduced Rhea, we introduced Jeddah, we introduced, some other new characters based on the next line of dolls. And then the next, quote, season is basically, oh, now we're going to do this whole Stingers campaign. We're going to introduce the Stingers and all the, and these other various characters, like Regine and some of the others. So it was really tied more to that. And it was tied to the 65 half-hour structure of syndicated animation. So when we got close to the end of the 65 half hours, the big question everybody was hanging on was, will we go beyond this run? Will we do any additional episodes beyond the 65? And the word finally came down that we wouldn't be doing that.
Gotcha. As I mentioned before, it's really cool to go back to see the outfits of the characters in the show. Was this a conscious effort to be kind of up to date and kind of show, hey, because each season you get a variation. I know you mentioned the dolls and the designs of the dolls and that. Did they have like a clothing designer consultant, or was it just stuff that you kind of left up to other people, or?
Well, yeah, that was. Hasbro was designing all of the fashions for the dolls, So
Gotcha.
Like we had the glitter and gold episode where they want to introduce this set of fashions that they had designed. So they just said, okay, there's going to be this line that's going to be called glitter and gold. So write us an episode that will introduce that. And I didn't know what it looked like.
Oh.
I didn't see anything. I had no idea what it actually looked like. I just knew thematically that it was going to be glitter and gold.
Glitter and gold, yeah.
So, I just wrote something that would allow us to introduce that particular fashion. And then, they had like a Hollywood gem set of fashions. And so consequently, we did some episodes that were even more additionally Hollywood oriented beyond the original ones that I did. And things like that,
Yeah, that's cool.
But
Awesome.
I got to see some line art of the fashions, and I was always so impressed by the really beautiful kind of line art that we had for the show. It was just wonderful stuff.
That's one of the reasons why I like Roxy. She always said, she did.
Yeah, that was one of the ways in which the Stingers were quite different than the other characters, because the Holograms each had their own look, and the Misfits each had their own look. But when they brought out the Stingers, they had this more uniform look. They were all black and yellow, and it was one of the reasons behind why I created the characters the way I did, because the Misfits are so individualistic and they're a little bit at odds with each other, and that kind of fit for the Misfits. But when I saw that this was going to be a more codified look, it made more sense to have the characters themselves be much more in tune with one another, to be a much tighter group that was really in sympathy with one another, rather than going their individualistic ways like the Misfits.
So what would you say the biggest changes are working on a show from the 80s to working on something of today? What's like the biggest change that you've seen?
That's hard for me to say, because for at least the past 7 years I've been working in game design. So but what I do see looking around that makes everything so interesting is that there are now just so many more outlets. There are so many different ways that you can put things out there. There are so many different types of channels and different types of things like Netflix, and Amazon is now producing stuff. And, there's just all these other possibilities. Plus just putting stuff on the web if you want to. Seems like there's a much more fertile ground there for more independent work.
And going back, I got a quick question for you. Did you help write the PSAs?
Oh, I did write those, yes.
Oh, cool. How do you think they would have changed if you were to write them today? Do you think anything would change?
No, probably not. I'd have to go back. It's been a long time, it's been 30 years since I looked at those things, so I'd have to go back and look at them again. But, they were pretty simplistic and to the point, so I
I
doubt
love the PSA.
I don't think it's changed too much. Yeah, I can't see them changing too much.
No texting and driving, people. We'll add that one.
Yeah, see, now you might update it, add some that wasn't there that we didn't have before, but
Yeah.
don't,
you go.
no texting while you walk, even. How many videos have we seen of people who, texting their way into ponds and falling down stairs and things like that?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's brilliant.
I mean,
would love to see
definitely, rebooting Gem, you definitely have to take all the new technology into account. That's a must. That's a given.
Oh, I think that would be, man, I could just see if you were writing for a new show today, it would be awesome.
Well, talking about that as well, though, after 30 years of Gem and now looking forward, what both looking back and looking forward, what do you take with you, and what are your hopes for the future of the franchise?
Well, what I take with me is just a wonderful relationship with all of the fans. I mean, I've been in pretty much constant touch for decades, and of course going to the conventions, and just the warmth and enthusiasm of the people. I just love it. I think it's just fantastic, and it's really amazing to know that something like an animation series has had this kind of an effect on people, that it has inspired people to become singers or musicians or artists or whatever. It's had all of these wonderful effects that you might not have guessed would come out of something like an animation series. So I think it shows the potential of that medium to actually move and inspire people. So I still carry all of that with me, which is wonderful. And I would really like to be able to wrap up what was, what I started doing with the original series. I would love to be able to kind of like wrap it up and move it forward and bring it forward and just do some more with it. That would be really nice. I don't know whether I'll get the opportunity to do that or not. But I do know one thing for sure, that it's really important for a creator to have more ownership over work. I mean, Gem was purely a work for hire situation, and consequently, I have no ownership or control over it, and consequently, everything can happen without me not having any participation, and that's fine. That's just the way the business is. That's how intellectual property works. It just makes me more aware of the fact that moving forward, I want to have more ownership and more control of things that I create. And it might be, I have thought very seriously, it might make more sense for me to just create something new that has the same kind of reach and feel as Gem, but that I own.
Yeah.
So that's certainly something I've thought about a lot.
That being said, though, I mean, I was just going to say, it's really, I mean, I watched the show and it affected me, and just hearing you talk about, that, taking that with you, that's just really touching.
I know.
And inspiring, So I want that.
I can't tell you how often, just day to day, just at Zynga alone, how often I run into someone who's a Gem fan. Who goes, "Oh my God, you wrote Gem!" Had that kind of a reaction, and it happens all over the place. It happens all the time, and I've kind of kept track of all the different places where Gem has popped up as a pop culture mention, and there's a number of mostly women singers who have shown that connection to Gem, that's something that inspired them and that shows up in their work. And there's even a gender-bent version of Gem, a musical group. I think they're Italian and they're all male, but they're doing a male version of Gem in the Holograms. I just saw that recently. So there's just all kinds of fun stuff.
Oh, I gotta go check that out.
Yeah, lots of
Well,
fun.
I know your influence made me really nervous to talk to you. I was telling these guys, I'm like, I don't think I've ever been nervous to talk to anyone. You made my childhood, not just with Jim, but you helped with G.I. Joe, which I loved, and you worked on Turtles, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Crazy.
I get that stuff too. It's kind of funny, and I kind of love it because if someone says to me now, "Oh wow, you wrote," I watched that when I was a kid. I said, "Oh, well, I'm very glad that I helped to twist and distort your childhood."
And you made it that much more awesome. Really.
So you said that you're not involved with the IDW comic book, and you had said that you had just found out about it when the world found out about it last October, right, Amy? Was New York Comic Con?
Yeah, I think it was in October. Yeah.
Had they now since then? I know when I've seen interviews with him that John Barber, Captain Continuity himself over at IDW, said the whole purpose of me even having the job at IDW was to get a Gem comic book going.
Oh wow, amazing!
I'm probably paraphrasing what he said, but he said something along those lines. Have they contacted you for any kind of like reference or anything like that? I know you're not working on the current series that's coming out in March, but
No, nobody contacted me, it's like I'm out there. I don't understand. It's really kind of strange to me that I don't know why people would not think to contact me, but for whatever reason they don't. And when I heard about it, I contacted them. So, I got in touch with them and discovered that, well, they had already had a pitch approved by Hasbro, so that was what they had to go with. And both of the writer and the artist of the comic have both reached out to me since then, and I told them, God bless, good luck, have great success with it. I wish you the best. I got absolutely no issues with them whatsoever. It's terrific. They both seem highly enthusiastic and have a strong, passionate desire to make it a really cool thing. So, good for them.
So my question about this was, now that you're involved with so much DC, would you be able to write for IDW in the future?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm not exclusive to anybody.
Oh, okay.
Awesome.
Good to know. John Barber, get on it.
yeah, ain't that right?
Well, first they have to get themselves up and going with the current reboot version that they're doing, and they're dealing with marketing at Hasbro, and you have to establish a relationship, and you have to build some trust, and you have to get all of that going, and then we can see what'll happen.
I think IDW and Hasbro really gave us all the middle finger when this announcement came out. Because don't get me wrong, I'm very excited for the series, and I somewhat enjoy what I've seen of the art so far. But they put up this IDW teaser poster of the classic looking, the animated series looking Gem. And then it comes out and it's all kitty-fied looking versions of the characters, and I'm like, wait, what?
Wait,
I'm still optimistic. No, I know. I'm still optimistic, but it just was like, wow, I was expecting something so totally different on the covers. Okay, so it's time to talk. You already mentioned the conventions, but Amy, what's that question you got there for?
Well, I was going to ask her if she was going to be attending any conventions, and she's already kind of said that she is. So, do you know of any other new ones popping up? I mean, I know
other than GemCon.
Yeah, we got GemCon. There was one that was over in the Europe area, and now there's one that's going to be in Canada, I think is what you mentioned. Are there
there's
ones
just one? There's only one GemCon that I know of,
okay.
and it moves. Its location moves. So people bid each year to hold the GemCon, and so there was one year I got to go to the Netherlands because they won the bid to have the GemCon there, and that was just wonderful. That was just absolutely the most fun in the world. I loved visiting Amsterdam and Rotterdam, and that was just terrific. And then last year it was in Toronto because they won the bid, and then this next year it's in Philadelphia. So it's just a matter of who puts forward a bid and gets approved to actually hold the convention. And it moves around to all different places. It's been in LA, it's been in Chicago, it's been all over. So they just asked me if I would be able to make it to the Philadelphia one, so we're in the process of talking about that. So I think I will be there for that one. I don't know whether I'm going to make it to San Diego Comic-Con. There might be some slim chance of that. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how that works out.
That was my next question is, well, you've worked with DC, you've done all animation. I mean, you could go pretty much to any comic convention anywhere, any geek, anything. Yeah. So
I went to Denver Comic-Con last year, and I think Phoenix Comic-Con the year before that. So it just kind of depends on who invites me.
And I missed it because that's where I'm at. Darn it.
Yeah. So no, if they invite me to come as a guest, then I go. But otherwise, I tend not to attend since, I do have the job at Zynga, and there are expenses involved. So
time off work and
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's get into other influences.
I have the biggest question. Is like, who are some of the other writers and artists that have influenced you? Not just in the past, but like even currently.
Who that I enjoy at any rate?
Well, either they're like, as a writer, I'm sure that, you look at something, you see something, and it inspires you, and you're like, oh, I've never looked at something that way before, and all of a sudden, now it's something that you want to know more about, and it starts to influence you as a creator.
Yeah, probably currently, I don't know. It's hard for anyone to influence me as much these days, although I do read and absorb the work of other people. I know that I do want to get into writing novels at some point. I just don't know when. So I read tons of novels and try to really absorb and learn as much as I can from other writers. I just finished reading George R.R. Martin's entire 5 books in the Songs of Fire and Ice, and I learned a lot from his writing, just looking at how he structured the books and how the things he did. There were just a lot of really wonderful, I don't want to say writer tricks, but stylistic decisions and the way he conveyed information. I mean, there was a lot. It was really chunky and meaty, and it was really, really good stuff to study in terms of writing novels and so forth. I mean, growing up, I was very heavily influenced by comic books because I just read tons and tons and tons of comic books. And I was influenced by people like Isaac Asimov. I read all of his books. Mary Stewart, I read all of her books. And Tolkien had a huge, huge impact on me. I read his stuff over and over and over again, and it definitely influenced me. Michael Moorcock, I thought he was wonderful. And there were a lot of people that I read that had quite an influence on me as I was developing as a writer. And currently I'm a big fan of urban fantasy, too. I really love the Dresden series, and I love all of the Coyote Werewolf books that Patricia Briggs does. I think her stuff is wonderful, too.
Nice.
So I'm all over the place. I like to do a lot of reading. And I finally got around, I mean, I'm a bit late on this, but I finally got around to reading the entire Vorkosigan saga by Lois McMaster Bujold. And that was just, sorry, I said Bujold McMaster. But anyway, and that's wonderful. Those books are absolutely just delightful. I really enjoyed the hell out of those.
Wow, that's cool. How about Nicole, if you have a question?
I got a question here. Okay, so you have written just about everything: TV, cartoons, books. I mean, it sounds like you're just everywhere on the board, which is so awesome. Out of all the characters you created, who would you say you relate to the most?
That's a big list.
Who I actually relate to?
Yeah, who would you say you put more of yourself into their character?
Hmm. Hmm. Probably the one that is my own original creation, and that's probably Baranway and the Sisterhood of Steel, since that was 100% mine. I wasn't working on anybody else's IP. I wasn't like doing an adaptation. I wasn't working with a licensed character. It was my very own creation. So that is probably what I feel the most in tune with, since it's 100% mine.
Is it available on Amazon?
Those came out in the mid 1980s. They came out right around the same time as Gem, as a matter of fact.
Oh, wow.
And they're available for me. I have them. I have all of them. I have boxes of them. So if you wanted to go to my website, which is just ChristyMarx.com, you could track down the link for that.
Nice. I'll do that.
Nice, yeah.
And I signed them. I autographed them.
Oh, even better.
Yeah, it was an 8-issue miniseries, followed by a graphic novel.
Nice.
I've got to track this down now.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I created the Sisterhood of Steel out of a reaction to what was done with Red Sonja at the time. Because when I started writing for Marvel, my very first sale was a Conan story. And then I did a number of Red Sonja stories. And they had done an origin story for Red Sonja. They plucked her. She was a character that they had plucked out of a Robert E. Howard story that had nothing to do with Conan, and had plunked her into the Conan universe, basically. And so they had created an origin for her. And I had a strong negative reaction to the origin for her, because I just didn't like that approach to creating this powerful warrior woman type of character. And so a lot of the reasoning behind the Sisterhood of Steel is I wanted to say and show how I thought an actual society of warrior women might function. How would that society actually work? I mean, could it actually exist and function, and what would that be like? And that was what I was interested in exploring with that series.
Very cool, very cool.
You mentioned, because we...
No steel bikinis. No steel bikinis. Not in the
I don't think any of us were thinking that.
Yeah, that wasn't...
Someone was, though.
Someone out there was. Because you've written for so many different media outlets, is it difficult to switch between the two, or to switch between the different media outlets that you write for?
No, it isn't. I think probably just because I've done so much of it and I've been doing it for so long, it's just ingrained. It's something that I've learned how to do. I'm pretty good at switching mental gears.
What is something that you would say is required? Like if a new writer or somebody out there that's just kind of following you around and going, I want to be doing what she's doing. What would you say is required for a new writer to do to be able to be in that mindset, to be able to acquire that type of knowledge or that experience?
For working across the different types of media, you mean?
Yeah, if they're having a problem kind of adjusting and switching gears from like comic to game to animation, that type of thing.
Well, there are two different aspects of it. As a writer, you have to first and foremost, no matter what media you're working in, what medium you're working in, first and foremost, obviously, you have to know how to write. You have to have the basic fundamental skills of a writer. So you need to learn that and gain that no matter what you're working in or how you're going about doing it. Just understanding how to structure a story, how to create a character, what is good writing versus bad writing, all of those basic things you have to learn. And then finding your own voice, what I call your voice. It's that way of writing that characterizes how you tell a story. So when you read Robert E. Howard, you can see that it's done in his voice. When you read a Hemingway story, that's a very different voice, or you read a George Martin story, that's a very different voice. Every writer has to has to develop and find and grow into, what is that writer's unique voice. And then the other aspect is there's the craft. So there's what you could call, I guess, the art, which is learning the skill of writing and finding your voice. And then there's the craft. So working in animation, working in comics, working in video games, whatever, those are all very specific areas of craft that you have to learn. You have to learn what makes an animation script. You have to learn what makes interactive writing and non-linear writing work, and what works for a mobile game versus what works for a console game. You have to learn the craft of an animation script and how that looks, how that's formatted. You have to learn all of these areas of craft. So that's the other aspect of it. It's learning those things and learning how to apply your ability as a writer into those formats. You have to be good at adapting to those different kinds of formats and understanding what the parameters are. What are the restrictions that you have to work within? When I'm writing for a mobile game, for example, I know that I'm going to have to tell a story in less than a tweet. and that's because you just look at a mobile phone. How much text can you put on a mobile phone and still have it be readable? And then what you have to think about when you're a game writer is it's not just the English text. You have to think about when that's translated into German. It's going to be twice as long. Are they going to be able to read that text? And consequently, you have these built-in limitations that you have to like, well, how do you tell a story in a series of less than a tweet? If I only have 125 characters to tell a story, how do I tell a story using those little bits? And that you have to develop rules and understanding about how to make story apply within that format. So really, it's a lot about learning the craft and understanding what all the requirements of the craft are, which is probably a great place for me to plug my book because I did create what is very much a craft how-to book called Writing for Animation, Comics, and Games, since I have worked a lot in those three areas, trying to convey not how to write, because I think there's a lot of stuff out there that really deals with learning to write and what a 3-act structure is and all that sort of thing. So these are a little bit more on the craft side, the kind of basic things you need to know if you're going to write in animation, or if you're going to write in games, or if you're going to write in comics.
Brilliant. So yeah, absolutely go check out her book.
And that's digital and paper both, that one.
And you can get that on your website, right?
That one you can just get through Barnes & Noble or Amazon.
Awesome. But there's links on it on your website as well, too.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. And lastly, because this is my last question, and I listened to, like I said, I've been saying this, the other 2 interviews that they've had. I know that you like World of Warcraft, so which is it, Alliance or Horde?
Alliance! I am a Night Elf hunter. That's my main, Night Elf hunter. And my husband and I have been playing for 9-10 years together as a Night Elf team. He's a Night Elf druid, I'm a Night Elf hunter. We got some alts, and I've got some Draenei alts. I don't know if this is going to mean anything to the most geeky people out there. But,
it does to me because I play. I've been doing it for the last 3 years.
and we've been playing the expansion, doing the garrison stuff, and that's been really intriguing to me because it's really interesting watching World of Warcraft actually draw elements from mobile games.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really intriguing, the kind of a crossover thing that I've seen happening, believe it or not. But since I spend so much of my time now in the world of games, and I looking and evaluating at this, that one of the most successful and wildly popular mobile games out there, has certain elements that I'm now seeing crop up in World of Warcraft, which I find extremely interesting.
If it works, might as well try it out, right?
Yeah, so I'm grinding my way towards level 100 on my hunter at this point.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I'm still trying to get to level 80. I'm not doing it every day, obviously.
Yeah. Well, you can buy the level up if you want to.
True, but isn't that cheating?
Yeah, I guess it's just up to you. It depends. If it's your first character, then it's probably better. Yeah, if it's your first
Yeah.
character, it's better to level all the way up just to get a better feel
An
for the
idea.
game.
Yeah.
But I've now leveled up a number of characters, so
Yeah.
I'm a little bit like, oh yeah, fine, just make me a 90.
Yeah, I don't want to miss that, between, the 20 levels or whatever, just because I'm like, it's the experience of the game.
Yeah, especially I think so you must be on the Cataclysm part. Or
I think I might have already updated to the Mists of Pandaria at this point.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a tie between the material that's in the Cataclysm
Hmm.
and material that's in this brand new expansion. That's very interesting.
Yeah. I look forward to getting to that point to seeing that. So yeah. Oh, okay. Now I'm getting what you're saying. Sorry, I'm such a noob. I'm going through this the first time. Yeah, I am. I think I'm on the Wrath of the Lich King right now. Actually,
Yeah, yeah, and I think
I
that's
haven't hit the monks yet.
right, right. So these world spaces that you're operating in now are the destroyed and cataclysmic part that you see still untouched in the expansion. So when you
Yeah.
get to the expansion, it's a time difference. It's a time thing. You're actually going back in time. So it's
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's
Nice.
kind of cool stuff.
Awesome sauce.
I love that you sound as geeky as the rest of the world.
It's good though because
I love it.
sometimes people like have no idea what you've done or whatever, and that's another way for them to get in is to see how geeky you are about stuff that you like now that they might be interested in, and then all of a sudden you start going back and do that. That's how I got into World of Warcraft, is because Chris Metzen, who works for the company, who's done for I've done my research since then, going, oh, I know who he is now, but he wrote a comic, Transformers comic. On another podcast that I run called The Underbase, we had him on and interviewed, and he talked a little bit about World of Warcraft because that was the other thing that he had done. And I hadn't played the game since I was, since the first expansion the first thing that they ever did, like way back in the game before it was even online. And so because of that, I jumped into World of Warcraft like shortly after my interview with him, and I had a friend that was into it as well. And because of that, now I'm a World of Warcraft geek. And who would have known? I would have never gotten into that had I not had the interview with him, had I not, anyhow, it just, things like that happen. So
All I ever remember about World of Warcraft is those Mr. T commercials.
Inspired, yes.
Those are good. Those
Those
are
are
awesome.
wonderful.
yeah.
So awesome. All right, so it is Jim's 30th anniversary. As I said at the beginning of the interview, we are launching Showtime Synergy. You would have already heard episode 0. Coming up May 10th, 2015 is when we're going to launch the first episode. The reason why we're waiting till then is because May 10th through, I think, the end of October, beginning of November, it will allow us to actually, 3 of us, Amy, Nicole, and myself, to actually go see and then come back and review the movie on the podcast. So, Christy, before we let you...
I have heard at least one of the songs since I was there that night. I have heard at least one of the songs that will be in the movie, and it was really good. It was a really great little song.
Good
So
times.
it's all new music, so obviously.
Oh, it's all new music. Dang, I was
updated
gonna
music.
say, I was gonna say a 30-year-old updating of Misfits in Hawaii.
No, they've used they had a lot of musical talent involved in it. So
Right.
and the 4 actresses, by the way, I should say the 4 actresses that are playing Gem and the Holograms are musicians. They are playing instruments and singing, and so that's their talent.
They're not faking it. It's like
Right.
that's what
It's their talent.
that's
yeah.
cool. The more I hear about this, the more I'm like, dang it, it's going to be so long of a wait till we get to hear all of this awesome.
Before we let you go, Christy, remind everyone where they can interact with you online, please.
Well, my website is very simply just ChristyMarx.com. That's ChristyMarx.com. It's kind of an old website. I'm a little embarrassed by it because I created it when HTML was new, and it needs to be updated.
Wow.
But nonetheless, there's a store area where you can go to buy autographed scripts and books.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Things of that sort. So
I looked at it last night. I found all of your cat blog stuff too, and I was like, "Oh, this is so awesome!"
yeah, I do the Moggy blog, and I also do the Moggy blog on Facebook as well.
Awesome sauce.
So there's a Moggy blog that's part of my site, and then I take the same material and also post it on the Facebook version of Moggy blog. Yeah, I've got 5 cats.
Wow.
They're
that's a lot.
adorable.
What upcoming projects? I know you can't say too much what you're working on. Is there anything that's coming out that you can talk about that you've worked on?
The Zynga games that I'm currently working on are still in development. I don't think I can actually talk about any of those just yet.
Mafia Wars 3.
Never again. Thank you. They are, I believe, if they ever did one, it would not be with me, that's for sure. But and then I'm doing a couple of short Secret Origin story things for DC, so I'm not sure exactly when those are coming out. Plus the Convergence.
That is separate. Okay, I was going to say that's separate from Convergence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we would like to thank Christy Marx for taking time to chat with us here in the Showtime Synergy interview, and we will catch you in May when we launch episode 1 of the podcast, folks. Have a truly outrageous year.
Yes, indeed. Have a wonderful 2015, everybody.
Show's over, Synergy.